everyone. I'm Pianpian, founder and CEO of Amotions AI. At Amotions AI, we're providing emotional intelligence real-time AI that can listen in conversations live, guiding people live during a call, as well as kind of giving the coaching and suggestions they need both during and after the call. And the AI can also provide real-time quick answers on technical or product questions in order to help the sales people to be more effective and efficient in connecting with the customer, converting the leads, and reduce their ramp-up time. We also have an AI role play that people can use to practice with before they hop on a real call with the customer. And all these systems together is with the goal of increasing revenue for the salespeople and their team and helping them kind of get to the sales next stage of the sales process faster in a successful way. We're excited to have Eugene here. Eugene is a former sales leader from Ericsson. He has many years of experience leading sales teams at Ericsson and other companies. And today we're going to talk about how we can leverage AI to be a game changer for sales teams. And thank you, Eugene, for joining us, and thanks for sales leaders for joining us, such as Travis that we have. Eugene, would be curious, like why you are so kind of excited about AI, and where do you see the AI can bring the biggest value for sales teams?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, first and foremost, we just, adding on to your introduction, it's been a number of years at Ericsson, which was focused on how do we bridge the gap between, OT and IT in the industrial space. A lot of companies were, trying to figure out, right, how do we drive more connected devices within the ecosystem so they can, be more efficient around that. When you think about the synergies there between what we do between sales and people, it's also how do we drive that human, interaction, right, between connections and things of what we do. And AI, right, as a tool helps us, really enhance that. So it helps us enhance the ability, right, for us to not only interact with more and more people, but interact with more and more information that we can share with people. So it increases our productivity, it increases our efficiency in terms of things that we do, and allows us to do a lot more, with less. So, AI really excites me as a tool, right, as a useful helper, to us as sales leaders, right, as sales executives who are out in the field selling. And I think that the more and more we begin to embrace it, I think the more and more efficient we can be, right, with creating customer demand and reach.
What are the biggest pain points you have seen in kind of the sales process or leading sales teams that you think there's a lot of inefficiency and that could benefit from technology to help?
Yeah, we talked about this, in the past. Salespeople spend about 28% of their time, out in the field selling. So you think relatively we're hired to go out there and sell products and services, right? And different offerings. And, if we're not out in the field selling, then the question is, what are we spending our time doing? We spend a lot of our time in back office type applications, right? Or front office, our CRM tools that we use for selling, our back office ERP systems that we use for finance and booking deals. And, what that does, right, is that now removes a salesperson from the field and talking to customers, and now has that salesperson sitting in the office, right, doing back office work. And I think there's a lot of things that, AI can do to help, improve, right, that front office and back office work, by, driving more automation, through AI. In terms of how salespeople interact with those tools. So they're not sitting in them 24/7, right, in terms of trying to figure out how do they make the numbers and things look good so that they can, show that they're being productive. I think the other, thing is when they're out there selling, are there things that, our salespeople can leverage, right, that will help them, be more effective sales reps, like access to more information that's relevant to the engagements and things that they're working on.
Great. And based on what you have seen in kind of the market, where do you see are the most promising use cases of AI in the sales processes? There are some recent research by the different consulting firms. I have seen kind of like 25 use cases throughout this whole sales process, from lead gen to kind of automate lead gen to in the moment kind of helping with putting knowledge and context about customers, like near real time coaching and post call coaching, like some of the things that we're doing at Emotions, and then and all the way through kind of post sales. And so yeah, would be curious to hear what you're
Yeah,
saying.
no, absolutely. I think when it comes to selling, a lot of the decision making made between, a customer and a salesperson, of course, is based off of the product or offering that you're selling and its ability to be able to solve the business outcome that the customer have. But there's also a big piece in that in terms of, the trust that the salespeople, the company they represent is going to stand behind the products and services that they have. And that's an emotional decision. So you talk about, what you're doing with, emotions and other companies, right? That can help a salesperson have a better understanding how to track, what the customer is feeling and what they're saying, and to have those capabilities. That is a huge, I think, advantage, right? That you can give a salesperson to, of course, there's a human element where they need to understand and be able to discern what the customer wants to do. But, the ability for AI to come in and help them better, not miss certain cues, that occurred, right, in that customer conversation, I think is essential. So you're starting to see that as a big piece. Another thing that you're starting to see AI, as an advantage is helping salespeople forecast their pipeline information. So based off those conversations, right, they have with their customer and the ability to understand what the problems are and emotionally discern what the challenges are that are going on within their environment. They can now use AI, right, to, get a lot more information on the different industries and things that they are participating in, research specific things that are related, right, to, challenges that they may be having going on in a particular industry, and, allow, just for a better understanding of how to actually solve that, desired business outcome that the customer has. So I think AI is it really equips a salesperson, I think, just to be more effective on their job. So, more and more we embrace it, as an industry, right? Then I think the more productive, right, we become.
And I know you have a philosophy of having AI to empower humans and make humans be more productive and powerful instead of having AI to replace humans. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, it's more around kind of what I call the human in the loop, right? So, we're all focused on, it leads from Entry Point Ventures, who I represent as a venture capitalist company, investing in different companies, right? It's how do we democratize, AI. So making AI a bit more accessible and in the hands, right, of every salesperson, right? Every person who wants to take advantage of it and easy to use. So, you want to be able to take a junior sales rep, right, and make them as effective as some of your most senior, sales leaders. So being able to put AI in their hands quickly allows them to be more, effective, right, in terms of the things that they do and how they engage. I think also just the whole piece around the human in the loop, AI is a tool, so we don't want to use AI, to replace, human beings. And that's a fear that's out there within the industry. But if you think about how humans are made and all the capabilities and things that we do, we're far off from human replacement. But using AI as a tool, right, to help augment human capability, I think is important. Right. And our philosophy is around, how do we leverage AI as a tool to augment human capability and to be able to, move and progress forward, right, with that within our sales world or other areas as well. You're starting to see areas like robotics and other areas, right, that are starting to take advantage of AI and AI agents, and I think that's just the tip of the spear. I think starting now with, the software space and the world that we're in, with AI and agents to be able to make better decisions, is moving along very fast. I think you're going to see more and more sales individuals embracing it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's kind of the philosophy that we have as well as how do we help use AI to make humans more human and being able to connect better with other humans, and have AI to do some of the work that kind of free up humans to do other kind of more focused. For example, like you mentioned, salespeople spend only 28% of time selling and doing a lot of other things. So one of the things our AI can help would be like, instead of salespeople role playing and practicing with each other, they can role play and practice with our AI, for example. Or instead of managers having to sit in every call to review and kind of give feedback, the AI can do that. And then instead of having a sales engineer or a manager to sit in every call to provide the assistance and kind of insight and coaching, the AI can do some of that. So yeah, we're kind of in this in the philosophy of that as well. Now, it doesn't mean that our AI can't directly interact with customer. I think for some of the more simple interactions with customer and client, we can kind of build the AI in that way as to some extent as well. But uh, there are certainly more kind of different kind of sales that still require human to interact with another human. I would love to hear from kind of other sales leaders in the Fireside Chat, for example, like Travis, if you have a kind of specific kind of what keeps you at night as a sales leader, and we can kind of discuss and brainstorm if that's something that the AI can, any new latest AI technology we can think about how to solve, or whether there's already existing solutions.
Yeah, for me, I'm really worried about where my sales team is spending their time. They need to be focused on those higher priority accounts and activities, behaviors, and get away from exactly what Eugene mentioned earlier. Only 28% of their time is spent selling, um, which isn't super effective. So we have to find ways to automate um, and take a lot of those administrative tasks off of their plate so they can spend more time with the customer. And I completely agree. AI is a great tool. It's been amazing for me and just continues to improve and help our organization and our team be successful, whether it's, spotting some trends that maybe, our brains don't necessarily think about. And I like it because it's really good at separating signals from the noise when we're looking at data. We can get wrapped up in a lot of things, but AI it's pretty succinct and gets to the point. So yeah, but I guess the first step is making sure that at least internally that our data hygiene is there and we're putting in good information so that we're receiving good results back when we are using AI.
I'd be curious to hear from both Eugene and Travis, like what are the salespeople spending time on if 70% of the time is not selling?
Yeah, you want to give some ideas, Travis, and I'll be happy to chime in there. I think we probably got a good idea around that. But
Yeah,
Travis,
for my team, and I've actually done a couple time studies to see where not just my sales team, but my sales support team is spending their time. And it really is on the kind of process piece of what we have to do. And it's okay with the support team. They're still customer facing part of the customer experience, and that's their role. Um, but even in that seat, I want them to focus on things that are going to generate growth, whether with our existing customers or prospects that we're targeting. So yeah, it's interesting that plus there's on my team there's a gap in experience. So I think training is super important, coaching is super important. I have individuals that have been very successful in sales, but the technology piece is really challenging for them. So as we're upgrading and implementing new technologies that long term are going to be super beneficial to our organization, it has taken a lot of time to train them. And, they feel like they're spending more time in the system than they did in the past. And that's on me to make sure that no, these systems are here to make you efficient, not, add more things for you to do. Um, and so the why we're using AI and increasing technology is a big part of my job too.
Mm. Yeah.
yeah, I completely agree, right, with everything that Travis said. I think also, our sales, executives and teams, there's a lot of pressure on them, from sales leaders and things like ourselves, right, to make sure that we have, a great deal of visibility, into the opportunities and things that they're chasing, right, what their forecasts look like, as well as the booking of business. And what that starts to drive a certain behavior, with the sales teams where they become more concerned, right, around what sales pipeline looks like, right, versus focusing on the customer needs, right, and what the customers are asking them for. And then they find themselves to make sure that, sales leaders have the right reporting and information and things that they're looking for, spending an exorbitant amount of time, like Travis mentioned, in those tools to make sure that their data is accurate and correct. And while that's important, right, you can't, sleep on the time that's spent, right, in those tools. And the more we can use AI to automate, a lot of those back office processes and the interaction and information that they need from sales reps, with the front office applications that they have, then the less time you have salespeople actually spending in those tools, and the more they can go out in the field, and sell. And I think that's a key piece, that we want to solve for within our industry, right? With sales executives is, how do we feel make salespeople feel right that they can spend more time selling, and that's a good thing, versus spend more time reporting on what they're selling.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. You both made very interesting points. Uh, it the kind of the point that Travis made about salespeople actually have to spend time learning the system and figure out how to use this. Um, I mean, as a startup that I personally worked on consumer product for 10 years before founding Emotions, our main kind of what we're building and focusing on is how do we make our product consumer grade and really easy to use and launch without the salespeople even have to learn.
Yeah.
And the AI just automatically show up in their flow of work, in the sales calls or in other systems that use. They don't even have to spend time learning. And another thing that we are kind of working on with some companies is if they have to learn a lot of new technology and information, even sometimes to explain to their own customers, our AI can quickly give suggestions and insights for them in the call instead of them having to remember all these technical details. Um, and for Eugene's point about like how do we free the salespeople up from worrying about reporting and sharing progress with the sales leader. I was just talking with other sales leaders this morning. As the weekend, the AI can, as the AI listen in the call and getting to know the knowledge, the AI can also provide some reports and analysis automatically without the salespeople having to enter the CIMs and report and all those. So it's kind of in the route of that. Anything else, Eugene or Travis, you think of that that kind of like still taking up more of their salespeople's time or
Well, I think you hit a important point on the small business aspect. There's different size businesses, right? And there's different size sales teams, and even large businesses, right, are starting to have smaller sales teams, so less salespeople that are out there within the field. And of course, if you have a small business, then you have less people. So then the question becomes, how do you do more, with less, right? How do you get the same effect if you're actually going out and approaching, a customer base that may be large, right? It has scale and reach, but you just have a few people. And I think leveraging AI, right, as a tool, to be able to gather information, right, for the sales executives in such a complex space, helping them make informed decisions, right, of how to engage, with subject matter experts in that space, I think is very key. It makes the salesperson a bit more credible. It allows them to actually be able to scale, right, and to be able to approach these customers with less fear, around that. Hey, if I don't have, everybody I need with me, or I can mention sales coaching. If I don't have a pre-sales person with me, right, or some other subject matter expert that I can't engage in this call, AI can be very helpful, right, in making the salesperson more proficient to be able to engage and have the confidence to engage, in different customer calls and interactions, right, that they may have. So I think that's a big thing, and also helping small businesses being able to scale, with less.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Scaling.
Hey, you both touched on the exact things that I think of. I'm a believer that we can do more with less when we create more bandwidth using AI and other technologies. But one of the initiatives that I'm trying to push forward with AI is exactly that our products are very technical and we have thousands of SKUs. And it could take years to build up that knowledge base. And I want to get to the point where just based on a conversation you're having, the system will prompt you with recommendations. If you hear the use case or they mention specs, AI just automatically picks up on that and starts prompting the sales consultant. And Eugene hit on it's confidence. It'll give them so much more confidence to have discussions at a higher level. Where right now we have to bring in, those sales engineers or the really technical colleagues at our company to assist with those high level, really technical conversations. So I think we can get to a point where you won't have to be an expert at your product necessarily anymore, because you will have AI to help guide you along the way. So I'm excited about that piece too.
Yeah, completely agree.
Have AI to guide you in the process instead of yourself having to be an expert on every piece of your product, especially
Yeah.
if your company has like dozens or hundreds of products, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So the AI can kind of continue to give the absorb the latest information knowledge and then being able to be an assistant in the call or throughout the sales process for that. Yeah. Um, what other kind of use cases or areas that you're all kind of
I
thinking?
think another thing too is that really, having AI as a tool to really understand and focus on what the actual customer's problem is that they're having, right? So really, being able to understand your customer and discern, right? They're approaching you and they're wanting to explore your products or goods and services because they have some type of business challenge that they're trying to figure out, or even maybe their jobs are on the line, right? Because their company is trying to be more productive and they've been tasked to figure out these challenges, and they're talking to the sales executives for just that. And they want the sales executives to be able to understand what that challenge is. And, the salespeople need to have tools in their hand to really understand what that customer's needs and wants are. And I think that that's one of the things that we see in the industry is how do you, equip these sales, executives, right, and leaders to, really focus in on the customer, problem, that they're trying to actually sell and solve for, and what tools can we put in their hands to help them be able to do that.
Mhm. So having AI to help understand the customer's needs better, either can give, say, like suggesting to them to ask the right things in the call or ask the right discovery questions or gathering kind of information from the internet and other places to understand the customer's need before the call or during and after.
Yeah, and even starting to understand, how these customers feel about different things. A lot of times, when you jump on the phone with the customer, depending on who the customer is, and if they're meeting a salesperson for the first time and they haven't developed that relationship, right? Or, they're just a bit skittish around sharing certain things, you may not be able to understand or pick up on the cues in terms of, how's that customer feeling about the product, right? Or about sharing certain information or more. And I think any, technology, right, and tools like Emotions and other products that can help discern, how is that customer actually feeling about, the engagement that they're either having with you about the products and goods and services, that you're offering, right, based off of the questions, right, that you're answering for them can help you pivot. It can help you pivot, right, to focus in different areas that, can trigger that customer, right, to say, hey, you know what, I think you're heading in the right direction. You do understand what my problem is. Anything that can help in those areas, I think is key.
That's great. Yeah. So it's like, that's what we're focusing on. It's having the AI, having emotions, for example, to be able to help understand the customers, how they feel about the whole conversation and process, and then the sales people can adjust what they're talking about or what they say and do behavior accordingly in a call. Yeah, yeah, very good points. And we're gonna wrap up the kind of the formal programming part of this. Any kind of any key takeaways that you want to share with the audience, and how sometimes like people would be like, okay, there's so much possibility with AI. Where do I start, and how should I kind of how should I also get the buy-in from our CEO or decision makers, other decision makers on kind of like why we should start leveraging AI now instead of waiting until 2027, things like that. So we'd be curious to hear your thoughts, and Travis would love to hear your thought as well. Eugene, would you like to share?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I was going to let Travis, begin because he has that real life experience being the customer. But, I think from a salesperson's aspect is don't be scared of AI. There's definitely some barriers, right, that have been, introduced where, there's a bit of what I'll call creepiness around AI in terms of privacy and information. So people are concerned, sales execs are concerned, like the more information I give AI, right, then the more it knows about me, right? And AI is going to do something, or these companies are going to do something with my information or my company's information. I'm going to be challenged. Now, we definitely need to abide right by our company's policies and rules that they have around the use of AI. But I think it's important that everybody open up and embrace AI, because the more we actually train, these models, to be able to learn, our business, learn how we interact with customers, learn about our product and technology, then the more efficient we can be in terms of leveraging the tool. If we don't actually teach these models, right, around, our different businesses, then the less effective they are. And, the companies, who do, right, the salespeople who do, they will have an edge. They will have an advantage over those who don't. So that's just one point, that I'll leave everybody with. Embrace it.
Yeah, Eugene took quite a few words right out of my mouth. Don't be scared.